Alrighty. Okay, so with us today we have Dick Gehring, who is just a powerhouse in the world of bison, as I like to say. That's how I talk about you, Dick, just so you know. um, Dick has owned and operated Black Kettle Buffalo near Mound Ridge, Kansas for more than 35 years and is a past president of the National Bison Association and has served as a chair of the National Bison Association Commercial Marketers Committee and has served on the board of directors and various other committees. Gehring has been involved with the Kansas Buffalo Association for many years and spearheads the group's annual auction each December. Is that still true?
Yes, for Saturday in December. You bet.
He also does consulting, and like I said, I consider him a powerhouse. Everything he says is worth its weight in gold. And so it's an honor to have him here today, where he will be talking about Roundup. So, without further ado, I want to pass it over to you, Dick, and just tell me more about yourself. Like, how did you get into bison ranching? And then we can talk about Roundup in just a bit.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for that introduction. You're setting your bar pretty low, but we started back in '80 doing some butchering for some locals, and in '83 I bought the meat locker, and we had been processing some buffalo prior to that, but through that experience we kind of developed or saw the ability to have a protein nobody else had, and so that's kind of how we got started. Ray Smith, a gentleman from Longford, Kansas, who got a lot of us in Kansas started, was bringing me animals to process for him, and friendship developed, and one thing led to another, and we got a few to run through the locker at our place, and pretty soon the cow herd started, and we just kind of went from there. But
so how many did you start out with, and how many do you have now, roughly?
Well, we grabbed a handful. I mean, we had like 8 to begin with, and wow. We were just kind of working our way through it, and now we're running around 150 to 200 cows. Kind of depends on the year, smaller cows, and then we're feeding quite a few for the commercial market. We got into that. I used to think back in the day when I had the locker that if there was a pound of buffalo meat to be sold, I needed to sell it. I've gotten over that. We concentrate a whole lot more on the volume and supply a lot of the smaller producers that have their own gate to plate operation, and maybe they don't have the ability to quite service that all of that. So we help out there where we can.
Awesome. That's so cool. So it's been, I said over 35 years, but is it closer to 40 now? Or
yeah, we started messing with them in 1980. So
yeah. So 46. Wow.
Well, kind of. Yeah. We didn't get our first ones till '88 that we had here at home, but so I guess from that standpoint, we're not quite 40 years yet, but it's been a while.
But I bet it's gone by in the blink of an eye.
Oh yeah.
So tell us about Roundup really briefly. Like, what is Roundup and what does that involve?
Okay. Roundup, as most people know it, I kind of like to call it a gathering because we try not to round up and push them in. We like to use cake and bring them in on their own accord and close the gate. It makes things much easier. Everything we do is designed to keep the stress low in the animal, and we didn't used to do it that way. I grew up in the stockyards, and we were pretty good hands with that, and we thought that's how you handled animals, and it was how we handled animals. And so now we take a different approach, and the purpose for the Roundup or the gathering is to once a year we like to get them in the squeeze chute, check them out. It's a time that vaccinations can happen if needed. Depends on your area and where you're at. Some places need some, and some places need others, and some places don't need any at all. If we need to worm, if we need to wean, we don't typically preg check unless it matters whether she stays or leaves, depending on whether she's bred or not.
Okay.
Yeah, because these guys, they're such a social structure to their environment that if you start pulling one out every time she comes open, you're going to have fruit basket upset
Hmm.
a lot of years, and that's not, to me, that's not a good practice for us. And we typically take a look at if there's one or two open. I try to ask myself, how come? What did I do? What did I not provide? What did I not deliver that kept them from cycling and getting bred? Is it their fault or is it mine? And a lot of times it's mine. And so we have to, if we push and concentrate on making sure they have whatever they need, the breed back is really a high percent. Works out pretty well.
So you typically don't scan for pregnancy. Some people do, some people don't, right?
Typically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
most of
cool.
the time, the only time we do is if she's been open before, she's getting older, she's having problems, whatever the case might
Yeah.
be. If she's gonna leave, if she's open, then we'll preg and find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Um, cool. Well, thank you for that explanation. Can you introduce, I know we're going to watch a video that kind of
Mhm.
goes more in depth about Roundup and kind of handling practices. Can you introduce it a bit?
Sure. Back in 18, the Kansas Buffalo Association hosted the National Bison Association Conference in Kansas City. And so we kind of added our own flair to that. We did something similar to what Texas did at their summer conference, or when they hosted the NBA summer conference. And that was virtual tours because it's hot and it's in the summertime and it's a long distance between ranches. And so instead of having a host ranch, we did virtual tours on 7 different ones. And so all of these had a little bit different component to them, a little bit of a different flair. And the one that we did at home that you're going to watch is, kind of more surrounding doing a working of the animals, etc., processing them. And the whole thing was supposed to be an educational event, all the way from what we did there, as well as just the talking about all the different things. And so you're going to see some interview stuff that had to do with the virtual tour part, not necessarily the working of the animals. But go ahead and roll it, and we'll see.
All right.
Yeah.
Over. Okay. Where can I make it? There we go.
I'm Dick Gehring with Black Kettle Buffalo in Mound Ridge, Kansas. This industry evolved over time. For many of us, it started out as a monetary thing. We wanted to make some money. We found something that's new and exciting and that not everybody else had. For most of us that stayed in it a long time, we realized it's a much bigger thing than that. And that's something that all of us need to realize, is when you're a part of something that's much bigger than you are. This animal teaches us so much. All the old cliches, less is more, patience is a virtue. Whenever we try and force something, whether it's management or whether we're trying to guide and direct this animal in a path that we want them to take, if you pause and let it happen, if you set the scenario up to succeed, they will lead you right through it. If you force the issue, it's going to cost you.
Many of the bison handling techniques we started with are what we learned about handling cattle. We soon found out that while it is quite similar, it is also very opposite. Pressure is key, just as in moving domestic stock, but the pressure needs to be applied differently. Placing yourself in the flight zone is important, but a calm, quiet, arms down, mouth shut demeanor will carry the day. Give them time to see the opening, and when building your facility, make the gates and alleys wide enough to invite movement. Too small will feel confining and constricting. There is a time to push and move quickly, but generally, if you need to run or push hard, that's an indicator you need a design change. It may require a square pin be made into a rectangle, or it may be as simple as an added gate or two so you can calmly walk up to it, close it, then continue to the next. We all know animals like to return to where they came from. Stair-stepping down in size gradually is most helpful for ease of movement. Making sure to take a reasonable number of animals into the next smaller pen is wise. Your next step down should reduce the volume of animals as well until you get to a comfortable number to run through the facility. Using a smaller number allows the animals time to look at their surroundings, see potential escape routes, without feeling the urge to circle into the middle of the larger group for safety. Again, calm, quiet, smooth handlers will facilitate the animals staying calm. We all know how things go when buffalo get mad and irritable. Open the gate you want them to move through and use your body placement to give enough room for them to advance, all while staying close enough to stem the flow to a proper number to take into the pre-shoot area, leaving a little room for them to advance further than the opening. We'll give you time to get up to the next gate and give them room to move back towards you. This will facilitate some continual movement, which will aid in keeping them from stalling out. Note that it's a balance like all things bison. Too much extra room encourages stalling. Not enough room may cramp their style too much and aid in anxiety. Observe your animals, and if they continually get anxious at a certain place in your system, change it. Keep them moving smoothly and quietly. Many of us used catwalks and narrow alleys for the safety and to be able to force the animals into the chute, because that's what we knew. Today we are using 6-foot wide alley to the chute, and we are on ground level whether we are inside the pens or outside the approach. This does two things. The extra width encourages fluid movement because of space and travel with a group, or at least with a partner. We all know that this is a herd-orientated animal and they don't particularly care to be confined or constrained. They also don't care for that feeling similar to a predator or threatening predatory movement. Hovering over them is an uncomfortable feeling for them, and if they are looking up at you trying to figure out how much of a threat you are, they aren't looking at the opening you are wanting them to go through. Catwalks and tight spaces can be counterproductive to fluid movement.
Most of us want to think we're buffalo ranchers, and we love the allure of that, and we love the animal. We're fascinated by everything that they bring to the table. In the end, what they teach us is we're grass managers, and if we don't do a good job managing the grass, our success or our failures or our challenges will become very evident to us, not by what the animal did, but by why we did or did not provide for them. This animal evolved here, it evolved with the grass, and the grass evolved with it. And taking care of that, ensuring that we don't take more than we leave behind, keeps this animal flourishing. And so many times in some of these schools that we put on, we talk about maximizing and optimizing. And those are not bad words, those are good words that we all need to strive for. But we need to understand what we're striving for. We need to understand what we're optimizing and what we're maximizing. When we talk about rotational grazing and we talk about pasture management, oftentimes the takeaway message for the student is, I'm going to be producing more grass. That means I can put more animals out here. And to me, that's the wrong take-home message. That is not what you need to be taking away. What you need to be taking away is by producing more grass, by producing a healthier environment, a better ecosystem, mama's going to do better, and the calf's going to do better, and your bottom line's going to do better. Once again, less is more. We have to be good stewards of the land. We have to be good stewards of the animal and our communities. It all ties together. On behalf of the National Bison Association, Kansas Buffalo Association, Thunder of the Plains, Instinct Bison, Circle 3 Ranch, Z-Bar at Turner Enterprises, Kansas Wildlife and Parks, and us here at Black Kettle Buffalo, happy ranching, and come and see us soon.
We can stop it there.
Yeah.
I really like that video. I think it's stellar.
Somebody just talks too much. Other than that, it's not bad.
No. I love like the shots of the moving the animals. I think it's a work of art. It's beautiful.
The irony is that one of the first things I say is if you need to run or push hard, you might need a design change. And here the two guys were in there, they were running, and they don't normally do that. But in that pin, it's a big square pin. Which is terrible design. And yeah, all it takes is if you need that space, that's fine, but you can take and put a cross fence in it with big gates on each end, which allow you to use the whole thing as a pin. But it also allows you to stair step it down in size, which would take all the running out of it. And it's what we've done. And it's a really important thing when it comes to handling them. Another point that was really evident in there was how those calves moved through into the chute. They just went in there like no big deal. You know, back in the day, Ray told me we have to have a tub. And I said, why? I mean, I didn't doubt him, but I was curious what was the reason. He said what, and I should have caught what he said, and it should have struck me odd, and it didn't at the time. But he said, we have to have that to be able to force them down that narrow alleyway. And, you know, here you've got here you've got an animal that doesn't like to be confined and doesn't like to be alone. And so we put it by itself in a place it can't turn around. You know, what could go wrong? Everything. So, yeah. Wow. That's a big difference. Yeah, go ahead.
No. So tell me more about the video. Also mentioned flight zones. So what does that mean, and how do you take advantage of them?
The flight zones?
Yes.
Yeah. So just like you have that friend who doesn't know your personal bubble space, and they get really, really close to you when they talk. Even every time you move back, they just move closer. Yeah. Buffalo don't like that either. So we're using our body placement to get the animal to move a direction we want them to move. And typically the shoulder's kind of the point of push, if you will. So if we get behind their shoulder, we want them to move forward, they move away from us, or the direction that they're headed. You know, if you get in front of their shoulder, we can get them to turn. That kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. The person doing that has to understand what their fight or flight zone is as well. Kind of what I was talking about the friend that doesn't know your personal space. You push too hard, you get too fast at that, and you end up getting a negative result. You don't get necessarily what you want. And if you put them enough on alert, they'll just turn and face you. If they can't get away from you, they'll take you out. So keeping them calm, keeping them cool and collected is paramount. It just really is.
So speaking of like flight zones, and also you said that you guys used to do more of like the hooting and hollering roundup, and now you don't.
Right.
Were you using flight zones to begin with, or Like,
Yes.
or was it more so just the force? Does that make sense?
Well, both. So
Okay.
when you're by yourself and you've got a large area you need to move animals through, you use some finesse and some wisdom of taking your time and giving them the idea that, hey, this can happen all by themselves if you allow it to. But when you get in tighter areas and you have the ability to force, um, that's valuable if you need to. But if
Mhm.
every time you have them tight, you force, it becomes a very uncomfortable place for them, and they remember
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
You know, before we widened the alleys out, we had to force animals down that narrow. It looked like a jail cell, and it was just it was a bad day, and they weren't interested. It took forever. When we had 10 cows, we always were told that you had to sort the calves off first so that the calves didn't get hurt in the process of working the animals. Well, the way we went about it, that was true. We did need to. And when we stopped doing it that way, we no longer have to sort. We don't pre-sort it.
Mhm.
We just run a draft through, and we kind of like to let them, like Ryan in that video, he was just, we were stair stepping down in size, both the pen as well as the number of animals, and he let a group come instead of picking and choosing which animals were in that group. He just let a group come. If they move together, typically they're pretty comfortable together. And so we did that, and then you just kind of step it down further, but allowing them to go at their own pace. I won't say they were having a good day necessarily, but it
Right.
wasn't an awful day. And back in the day when we were having to force them down that alley, it could take literally all day to get 10 cows and calves worked, and it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't good for anybody, us or them. Now, and we might have had 6, 7 people to
Mhm.
get all the gates and do all the things. Now 3 of us can work 300-400 head in a day, and it's pretty easy day.
Yeah.
And a lot of that just has to do with the right setup, the right equipment, and the right people, their mouths shut and their hands down, and just kind of letting things happen. The faster you, or the slower you go, the faster you get done.
And how long were you working with animals before you started that transition?
All my life. Like
Oh, okay.
dad was an auctioneer. I grew up pretty much in the stockyards, going to sales all summer long and working there. And so a lot of the techniques that they talk about now, we did back then. We just didn't know what to call them.
Yeah.
But we also did a lot of forcing because we could, and because we were working with domestic stock and they didn't fight back typically.
Mhm.
We could have probably made their day a lot easier too had we used these same methods that we're using now. And most folks are catching on. Those catwalks are safe for the person, if you will, but they're terrible for the animal.
Mm.
They cause anxiety. You're like a predator. You're above them. They don't like it. They turn and look at you, and when they're looking at you, they're not looking at the hole that you want them to go through.
Mhm.
People fall off those catwalks. It's just much easier to take them out, cut a space in between the rungs of your facility so that you can see, so that you can step up to it and put pressure on the animal to move, and then you can step back and take the pressure off, and your
Yeah.
feet are on the ground, and so you're not above them and you're not falling off anything, and it's just, everything makes sense for everybody.
So tell me how that infrastructure of the corral system, of the catwalks, with or without them, how does that differ from cattle processing? Are there different panels that you use for bison? Are there different like equipment? What are the differences?
Sure. The biggest, it's basically the same stuff. It's just a
Okay.
matter of how it's positioned, how it's set up.
Okay.
Um, with these guys, if you have blanked out, sheeted, panels, um, if they can't see through it, they won't try and go through it. My first
Okay.
my first setup was open rail, and the squeeze chute was an old cattle chute that I made a head catch on and a crash cage on so that I could, stop them and get them caught. Well, every one of those slots, every one of those openings was a potential escape route. They weren't going to get through it. They weren't going to escape, but they didn't know that. And it was an
Yeah.
open. And so they took it and they took it and they tried and they tried and they tried. It was awful. It was the worst. And they got stressed out, which caused me to get stressed out. And when I got stressed, they got more stressed. And of course, when they got more, everybody's anxiety just goes up. It was never a good day. A lot of times people take that a little too far and they make 8-foot tall walls all solid. Well, you can't be in a in a scenario like that and need to crawl out and not be able to. That doesn't work. So 6-foot tall is plenty, but 4 foot and down, if that can be solid to where they can't see through it, you just change the game a lot. And being able to reach in, being able to have them see you when you approach close is key. And if you do that, really, that's about the only difference. And what we find with a lot of guys that have both cattle and bison, it works great for cattle as well. Had a number of guys come over with their cows and run them through our system, and they're just like, man, this works great. And well, it does. And so, yeah, it's just better for the bison because they're a wild animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've spoken a little bit about the safety of people as well as the safety of the animals. What is, and I know this is like, there's a lot of answers to this, but what would be the most dangerous, like, rookie mistake someone could make at a bison roundup?
Not paying attention.
Okay.
So standing in a gateway when the animal's coming, there's a time to bluff and there's a time to get out of the way. And probably more people have got hurt not watching and not paying attention and getting run over. Not necessarily because the animal was trying to hurt you. There was just an opening that they wanted. You happened to be in the way, and it's a bad day. That's probably the number one. The other thing is overextending yourself and thinking that you can do more than you can do. These guys, if you don't make them angry, if you don't make them scared, they're workable. But when they get stressed and they get pressured, if they can't leave, they will turn and fight, and they play for keeps. So, always having your head in the game. And probably the reasons for all of that, one of the biggest challenges a lot of folks have is it's sometimes a community event day when they have a roundup or a working and everybody comes. That's so counterproductive. 3 or 4 people is all you want. You get more than 2, you start to become a pack.
Okay.
And so right away, it can be very, it can put them on edge right off the bat because there's too many predators around, number one. Number two, depending on how they behave, can really set things off. And so one person, usually, if you're set up right, one person can get more done than 2 or 3 because now they're not worried about you. They're looking for an opening as opposed to making sure that you're not sneaking up behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a lot of
I find
psychology.
that so fascinating. Like, I think about how we're predators when I'm approaching a bison, right, in the field, but I don't think about being a pack. And I think that's a really fascinating term you used because I'm like, oh, like, duh, but that's why they freak out, part of the reason.
Sure.
And what I'm getting from that too is just like we always have to put ourselves in the animal's shoes, so to speak, right? So thank you for that. I don't know why that was such a big epiphany.
One of the best things that people can do if they want to improve on their operation is take video like that and watch it. Something you didn't see from the cut on the floor version was we got, we feel like we're pretty fair hands at handling these things, and we can make things happen, and we can make things happen. One of the things that I noticed watching some of this footage before we put it all together for the conference was sometimes we weren't paying attention to what our activities in pin A were causing in pin B and C. And when you watch those drone footages, you're seeing all the impact that you're having on all the animals around you. And you're not concentrating on them because you're concentrating on the ones that you're in with. But that's a game changer when you start to see how much your actions matter. And if you'll just sit and watch and watch the animals and what they respond to favorably and what they respond to negatively according to what you're after, that's a huge learning tool right there.
You'll learn a lot. Yeah. So also, another thing that you've kind of touched on is like how smart bison are and how they can remember things. So here, like our roundup happens once a year. I'm sure that's normal. But what I've found is that bison remember. They remember bad instances. They remember good instances. So if a roundup goes poorly one year, how have you found that sours a herd's behavior for the event? Or have you seen like huge roadblocks come up because they just refuse to participate?
Absolutely. Back before we learned how to handle them and back before we changed our equipment, that set of cows would just balk. I mean, they wouldn't go through. They would fight. They didn't want any part of it. It was a bad day. And so we've kind of dummied that down for them all the way to, we don't just catch them in the pen the day we're going to work them. Throughout the year, we're feeding in there, just not that because we're really feeding them, but we're giving them cake, something that they like, and not closing the gate. And so, one pasture we have has a catch pen in the middle of it. It's there's no working them into it. It's you gotta bait them in. Well, the way we do that is simply we don't shut the gate until we could have shut the gate about 3 times and caught them all. So when we finally do go shut the gate nice and quietly, not slamming and banging and running, just walk up to it or drive up to it and shut it quietly. And then along that behavior, along with handling them properly through the scenario, will typically take them before we let them out. We don't just turn them back out into the pasture out of the squeeze chute. We hold them and we keep them for several hours a day, whatever. And we continue that, I don't know, I guess reward cycle, if you will, of here, this is every time we show up. If every time we show up, it's a bad day for them, it's just going to be a wreck. And so spending a little effort and a little time throughout the year, just being a good guy, pays dividends.
And so, so you've seen maybe the behaviors change or adapt to that positive behavior, like those stubborn cows. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay. Let's see. I have a few other questions. Also, if our guest, I think that's Joan, has any questions, feel free to come off mute and ask them at any time. Let's see. So this is kind of maybe a funny story, I hope, from you. So what was the moment during a roundup where you realized you weren't actually the one in control?
That's usually by 7 a.m.
Every day. Okay.
Pretty much. The hard part of learning that is when you realize all the things that you were forcing.
Okay.
Yeah. I can remember this really isn't answering your question, but in a roundabout way it is. I can remember at our sale, sorting calves that were coming in unsorted, and we needed this one out of that group and we needed this one out of that group. And so I would just go in and make it happen. Well, it was resulting in animals crawling on top of each other because they're trying to get away. It's not I was successful. I was quote unquote in charge, but it wasn't a good day for the animal. And once we took a look at that and started doing a much less aggressive approach, everything smoothed out and everything started working really well. And that's been a big learning curve over the years. It didn't take very long to figure it out, but it took a bit. Kind of hard-headed, and you kind of got to hit me over the head 3 or 4 times to get my attention. But once we started that kind of approach, we've worked on that. We've expounded on that to the point of we take our portable chute and sorting system to the sale every year, because none of us are getting any younger, and it's so much easier on the animals. Some guys are using skid steers now with a pusher on front of it to bring them up the alley to the facility. And I used to think that's just awful. Well, after watching how it happens and how it works, it's probably one of the best things, most humane thing there is, because they move away from the machine. They respect the machine, but they're not afraid of it. It's not a predator. It's not alive. It's not attacking. It's not putting off anything other than movement. Pushing pressure is all it's doing. And they respond really well to that. And so those are just things that we're starting to incorporate into our own operation.
Awesome. So speaking a little more, not sort of about Roundup, but more about your personal experience. So at the end of the day, after you've done Roundup, after you interact with your bison at all, does this feel like a job to you, or does it feel like something bigger? Do you always feel like you're a part of something bigger, or have you been in it so long that you're like, okay, it's another day on the ranch,
We used to think that.
Yeah.
We used to think we've got it all figured out. The more we sit back and watch, and the more we sit back and look, the more we realize we're not in charge. We are entrusted, I guess, to facilitate a good outcome. And if we handle ourselves properly, then it is a good outcome, or potentially a good outcome. If we don't, it's about guaranteed it's not going to be a good one. This is definitely something way, way bigger than we are. When you start to learn about the ecosystem, the grass, the ground, the flora, the fauna, all of that, and how that connects and how that interconnects with this species, we're just a little blip on the radar screen. And it is, and it was here long before I got here, and it's going to be here long after I'm gone. And so probably the greatest contribution I can make, if I can make one, is my kids and how they carry this forward. And if they carry it forward in a positive manner, whether it's bison or whatever it is they do, that's the bigger picture. Absolutely.
I love that. Wow. And your son is in bison, right? Correct?
Yes. Yeah, Reese and Meg are very excited about it. They own half the cows and trying to figure out a way how to push me out and get me gone. And didn't think I'd ever want that. I'm starting to kind of get used to the idea.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, and the grandkids are of course they're too young yet, but they're really excited about it. So this has some.
That's a legacy.
Yeah, this has some longevity potential anyway, I hope.
Sure.
You bet.
Sure. Awesome. So my last question is more technical, and you kind of touched on it with cows being open or bred, but how do you decide whenever you're processing the animals, which ones stay in which pasture, which ones are sold or processed? What is your process for that?
Okay. Well, that typically is not decided that day.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done that beforehand. Now, the exception to that would be this gal's been having some production problems. Her calves are getting small, or she's missing a cycle every now and then, and nobody else is, we can't really blame ourselves for it. And so if she's open, she goes. If she's bred, she stays. Well, aside from that type of thing, we're pretty much making those decisions ahead of time, and we're always trying to improve on conformation, the physical presentation of the animal, how they're put together, their structure from the ground up, and then temperament plays in very little. It used to play in big, and I got rid of that witch that can hunt you down. I got rid of her. I don't know how many times. She kept coming back. She just had a different ear tag that time. Somebody took her place there. She will always be there. Whoever she is, she will always be there. And so I stopped doing that. And she's typically one of your best producing cows that takes that, dominant role. And so I quit getting rid of the good cows and just learned how to deal with it, learned how to live with that. So we're looking at conformation, we're looking at genetics, and what I'm getting at is we're selling quite a few bulls and heifers for breeding stock. And so we're utilizing the NABR, the North American Bison Registry, and we're doing DNA testing to find parentage on mom and the calves. And then we're trying to take a look at the different pedigrees and see about what it is out there that maybe can improve on the overall picture. And so that's a much bigger conversation that includes a lot of different aspects that we have, and we kind of have that all year long. And of course, plan A turns to B, C, D, E, and G, and eventually you get to Y and Z, and then start over on double A. But that's kind of the fun part of this is all my life I was told it takes a lifetime to develop a cow herd, and I just like, what are you talking about? Go buy some cows and call it a day. No, it really does take a lifetime, and here we are 40 years later, and we're still making a lot of strides, I think, on where we're headed. And so again, hopefully that all rolls into the next generation and the one after that.
Beautiful. And does it also depend too if you want to, like, do you ever think about expanding your herd, like keeping most of your bison instead of processing them to get up to 300? Or
oh, sure. Yeah, if we had several million acres, we'd find a way to fill it. Yeah, sure. The stocking rate is key, and how many animals you can have on how many acres, that is key. And if we don't do a good job of taking care of the grass, then we don't have any grass to take care of the buffalo. So that is continually a factor that keeps us from holding on to too many. There's a lot of times there are some really good animals that end up leaving that I wish we could hold on to, but there's just only so many square feet out there. Yeah. So yeah, it's a constant battle.
So kind of the moral of the story is, like, Roundup isn't just one day. Like you said, like, you have to be thinking about these things all year round. It's just Roundup kind of helps you finalize or move to the next step, right?
Sure. And it all goes, best laid plans of mice and men, just like you asked, when do you realize you're not in charge? Well, the day that they broke out when you were getting ready to work, or the day that, something else happened and now you're not able to do what it was you were thinking. And so you're having to make some pretty snap judgment, decisions to be able to turn left or turn right. And all while making sure that your decision doesn't box you into something you don't want in the long run. So yeah, it's a marathon. It's not a race. It's not a sprint, no doubt.
Yeah, no wonder it takes a lifetime. This is a lot.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
so fun. Cool. Well, if nobody has any questions, that's all I had. So thank you so much for this conversation, Dick. This was really enlightening, and I could just talk to you all day. So
Well,
thank
call me
you.
anytime.
I will. You're going to regret saying that.
All right.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you so much. We'll post this on our website so anyone can access it. But yeah, I just want to thank you for your time.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Huh.
You too.